So the learning goal today is I can solve absolute value equations. Before we can solve an absolute value equation, we have to know what an absolute value is. An absolute value is a number's distance from 0 on a number line. So because it's distance, it means it's always positive. You walk 1 mile to school and you walk 1 mile home. You don't walk -1 miles home. The absolute value symbol are these two lines around the x or around the 5 or around whatever variable or number combination you have. So if we're looking at examples, that absolute value of 5, well, 5 is exactly 5 units away from 0 on the number line. So the absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of 3 is, the absolute value of -3 is +3. Because -3 is 3 units away from 0 on the number line. And the absolute value of 0 is going to be 0. Some things that can't happen is you can't have the absolute value by itself on one side and equal a negative number. If that happens, that does not exist. Somebody's trying to trick you. So now that we've defined what an absolute value is, let's talk about how to solve it. So you solve an absolute value by getting it all alone on one side of the equal sign. And then you use please don't call me after midnight in order to do that. Then you rewrite it as two different equations. For both equations, you're going to drop the absolute value symbol. You're going to put the other side of the equals in parentheses. Okay? And then for the first equation, you're going to write a 1 in front of the parentheses. And on the second equation, you're going to write a -1 in front of the parentheses. And then finally, you're going to solve both sides of the equation, or solve both equations. So the key here is one has to have a 1, one has to have a -1. That's how we determine how 5 is equal to, the absolute value of 5 is 5, and the absolute value of -5 is also 5. So let's do the first example. So first question we ask ourselves, is the absolute value alone on one side? If you don't have a highlighter yet, please pause this video and go ask for a highlighter. So the absolute value is by itself, so I'm ready to set up two equations. Okay. For both equations, I drop the absolute value symbol and I put the other side of the equal inside parentheses. Again, I drop it, put the other side inside parentheses. Now for one of them, I go ahead and I put a +1 in front and the other gets a -1. Okay, so now I'm going to just use please don't call me after midnight to solve these. So I'm going to prepare. There's nothing to prepare, so I'm ready to distribute. So I got x over 3 equals 10. Now x divided by 3, to undo divided by, I multiply by 3. So I got x equals 30. Okay, ready to do the other side. Nothing to prepare, so I'm just going to distribute. So I got x over 3 is equal to -10. This is x divided by 3. To undo a divided by, I multiply. So I got to do it to both sides. So I got x equals -30. So there are two solutions to this equation. It's x equals 30 and x equals -30. Let's go ahead and let's look at the second one. Okay, so first step, get the absolute value by itself. Is it by itself? No. Okay, so now I need to figure out how to get it by itself because it's not alone yet. So right now there's a +3 next to it. I'm going to undo that +3 by subtracting 3 on both sides. So I got the absolute value of x minus 2 is equal to 2. Again, ask myself, is it alone? Yeah, it is. I'm ready for my two equations. Go ahead and try to write your two equations now. Okay, this is what I got for my two equations. I got x minus 2 is equal to 1 parenthesis 2, and x minus 2 is equal to -1 parenthesis 2. Now I'm ready to solve these two equations. So I'm going to prepare, distribute. So I got x plus -2 is equal to 2. And then I'm going to move this -2 by adding 2. So I got x equals 4. Okay, now I'm ready to do the other side. Prepare, distribute. So x plus -2 is equal to -2. I'm going to add 2 on both sides. And I got x equals 0. So my two solutions this time are 4 and 0. Let's try another. So we're going to go on to example 3. Go ahead and highlight the absolute value. Is it by itself? Your answer should be, no, it's not. Let's get it alone. Now here's the deal. We've got 5 times it and a -15. Your first instinct is probably to distribute this, but you cannot distribute into an absolute value. You can only distribute into a parenthesis. So when we're thinking about please don't call me after midnight, we have no parentheses. There's no distributing because there is no, or I'm sorry, there's no preparing. Oh, we do. Actually, sorry. We can't distribute because there's no parentheses. Combine like terms, same side only. Nope, because it's inside that absolute value. Okay, so move variables. We don't have an x on both sides. Now this one is our add, subtract, and this one's our multiply, divide. So we're going to do the add, subtract first. So that's where we move this 15. So we're going to add the 15 to both sides. So I got 5, absolute value of 2x plus 1 is equal to 25. Again, is it by itself? No, it's not. You're going to want to distribute that. Don't. This is 5 times. Get rid of it. So we undo times by dividing by. So I got the absolute value of 2x plus 1 is equal to 5. Again, ask ourselves, is it by itself now? It is. Okay, let's go ahead and let's write it as our 2 equations. So our first equation is 2x, is 2x plus 1 equals, and we have our parenthesis 5, and that's where we put our 1 in front. In our second equation, drop the symbol, write the other side in parentheses, and instead of a 1, we want a -1. Okay, now let's set up this problem. Solve it using please don't call me after midnight. Nothing to prepare. Let's distribute. So we got 2x plus 1 equals 5. Subtract 1. So we got 2x equals, let's see, what is that? 2x equals 4. And I just divide by 2. And I got x equals 2. Okay, same idea here. Distribute. So we got 2x plus 1 equals -5. I subtract the 1. I got 2x equals -6. Divide by the 2. And I got x equals -3. So my two answers are x equals 2 and x equals -3. Now, last problem. Okay. This one looks big, but same steps. Don't let it overwhelm you. First, is the absolute value by itself? Not yet. Let's get it by itself. We got to think about our steps. This is multiplication and that's addition. So we are going to move the addition first. So I got -3, absolute value of 2x minus 10 equals -24. Then I'm going to get rid of the multiplication because that absolute value is still not by itself. I'm going to divide by the -3. And I got the absolute value of 2x minus 10 is equal to +8. Now, if this said -8, we would stop because that's not possible. But because it's a positive number, I can keep going. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and write my 2 equations. You do that now. So here are my 2 equations. One has a +1 in front, and one has a -1. Go ahead and solve these. So if you solve them correctly, you should have gotten x equals 9 and x equals 1. If you didn't, please come up and talk to us.